Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com. Welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate 360. Quick reminder for those of you not familiar, Real Estate 360 is a show designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's housing and credit markets one house at a time. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, the best number to reach out to us is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. So now it's time to go back to our market movers, which are brought to you by HomeGain. HomeGain is the place to get you started buying or selling a home, finding a realtor, and getting real estate questions answered. Go to homegain.com today to see what I'm talking about. All you have to do is type in your home address and you will get an instant free estimate of your home's value online. It's a great way to monitor your home's value, and it's totally free. So make sure you check out today, homegain.com. That's homegain.com. Louis, I want to jump back in. Last Friday was the jobs report, and it came in relatively hot. Actually, I'm just going to pull it up here. In January, the U.S. economy added 243,000 new jobs, and prior non-farm payrolls data was revised to show that an additional 180,000 new net jobs were created last year than were initially tallied. As compared to 1 year ago, there are 2.1 million more jobs in the U.S. economy. Also included in the non-farm payrolls report is the national unemployment rate, which is a measure of the number of people in the U.S. workforce and without work. So after last month's strong jobs figures, the unemployment rate is down to 8.3%, its lowest since February of 2009. Now, I had said last week that, I think that these numbers, it's all fine and dandy that, that it looks like the job market's picking up a little bit. I don't really think that this is going to be anything that's sustainable. And once again, I really don't feel that our unemployment rate is anywhere near 8.3%. I'd say it's more like 16%. I don't think that this is necessarily a good indication of exactly where our economy is. And it's kind of very contradictory to what Fed Chairman Bernanke was saying the state of the economy is. Wouldn't you agree, Louis?
Well, it's contradictory, but for a purpose. They need to keep the unemployment rate going down coming into an election year. And then also you want to have a easy Fed money policy so they can continue to have a reason to keep the interest rates low. So you would think that if the employment situation was getting better in reality, then you wouldn't have to have this easy Fed money policy for the next couple of years. But that doesn't seem to be the case because, as you point out, the reality of it is that if you take out all the people who have given up work, all the underemployed people, I don't think the unemployment rate has really gone down. I think, yes, there were some jobs created, but not in the quantities needed to drive the unemployment rate down and say that we're on the road to recovery. And the Fed knows this. The Fed claims that they have a dual mandate. One of them is interested in employment, but I think their real key right now is they just need to keep interest rates low because they know that if interest rates were to go up, it would be a disaster because the servicing on the debt, the amount would go into the trillions if the United States had to pay more interest on its current debt and future debt.
And I think that's the thing that's really driving their comments is that versus the actual worrying about interest rates, because technically if we had this sustainable job growth over the next 6 months, then technically we see our economy moving in the right direction. They would have to start raising interest rates, which they have no intentions of doing.
Sure. And look, if low interest rates were the cure for all of what's been going on, we would have been out of this already. They've had low interest rates for the last 3-4 years now, and really things haven't picked up at all. The low interest rates are really there to make sure that the U.S. doesn't default.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's interesting because when those numbers came out on Friday, it was almost immediate. Within like 60 seconds of that announcement, mortgage bonds had basically lost enough value to increase rates by 1/8%.
Actually, that's what they want. They want the interest rates to go up a little bit, but they don't. But it doesn't make much sense to say the unemployment rate went down when it didn't.
Right. Yeah, I agree. We know that it didn't. And it's interesting because all these numbers that they use for their statistics, it's interesting because, like we said, they're not taking into consideration any of the people who stop looking for work, which
And
makes
that
up.
number grows as those people give up every month. More and more people give up looking, and most of the people that give up looking after a period of time, it becomes harder and harder for them to get reemployed. The best time to get a job is within 6 months of the time you lose your prior job.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
as you're layering on all the people that get laid off in the last 2 or 3 years, those people continue to remain unemployed, and their numbers grow. Now, if you put them back into the unemployment number, you'd be back over 10, 11%.
Yeah. You're listening to Real Estate 360 Live with Ryan Sloper. I'm joined by my guest, Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. For those of you out there who are, trying to float your rate into Friday's report, and obviously that rates got a little bit worse, that is, one of the main reasons that I always tell people, don't get too greedy over your rate because, it only takes one little report and it springs rates right back up. So, while somebody was holding out, Lewis, to get maybe another eighth in rate, hoping that it would go lower, and it actually went higher. Those were pretty much like last week was probably one of the best times to lock in in the last 100 years. And when we had that report, things got a little bit worse. So that we did gain a little bit back this morning, but I'm telling people every day that, if do not sit on the fence. Your cost of homeownership is at an all-time low, and you need to really just stop worrying so much about the actual interest rate and worry about the cost. We've kind of talked about that. That's one of our things that we've been, discussing over the last year and a half, is that is really the most important thing. When future inflation does, rear its ugly head, the best thing that you can have on your side is a low fixed rate mortgage.
That's your asset, because then your cost of shelter remains the same, whereas your cost of rent will go up if there's rent inflation. You're in a good situation as long as you don't pay too much for the house. You can even absorb some price depreciation, provided that you've got a long-term fixed mortgage rate at a low rate.
Yeah, and in the DC metro area, it's just in so many instances, all these different, when I run analysis for people just to figure out whether it makes sense for them to potentially, buy, you're most of the time the payments are coming out almost identical to what a rent would be on the same home, maybe just a touch more, but after the tax savings and everything else, all things being equal, it's a better situation for the person.
But that's today. But in 2 or 3 years, as rents go up, but your mortgage stays the same, you come out a winner. Yeah,
and you have a lot of other benefits of owning the mortgage too. Like owning a home is not just just to do it. You get to actually make it your own. You get to get in there and do the things that you want to do. You buy into a subdivision that you like for your kids and your family. It's a way of forced savings to where you actually are putting money into an asset that at some point hopefully you'll be able to get something back out of it.
And you don't have to worry about moving when the lease is up.
Which now it's interesting, Louis, because I've seen that a lot of landlords, they have these 1-year leases and 2-year leases. When they're coming due, all of a sudden they're trying to raise rent instead of $2,000. They're like, no, we want $2,500.
Or they might want to sell the home, or they might. So you're in that uncertain period when you're a renter, and especially as inflation ticks up and you're not in rent control, your rent's going to go up. Whereas you have a fixed rate, long-term, low-interest mortgage, you'll be in better shape.
Yeah, and in the D.C. metro area, we've actually had appreciation in homes. So a lot of these landlords that were renting their homes, needing prices to come up to a point where they could actually sell, they're getting to that point now. So,
and plus, with the people burying gold in their backyard, it's probably better to do if you own the house.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great place to put it, right?
I don't know anyone who does that. I always hear about people burying precious metals in their backyard.
Not necessarily a good place to put them. But I really just think that if you're and most people are in these situations now. It's funny because on a daily basis.
If you're renting, you move, then that's a problem. You could leave your gold in a hole somewhere in a rented apartment.
Yep. Yeah, and what it's forcing a lot of people to do is, they might have been renting a single family home for $2,000, and then all of a sudden the landlord's like, well, guess what? It's now $2,500. So they go and look for another place, and they can't find anything that's comparable because everything has gone up, and now they're having to downsize their rental. So they're not getting as much as they once were. Now they have a family with 3 or 4 kids and trying to trying to put everybody into a townhome now or
Well,
even a condo.
and
So
there's a cost to moving. There's a
it's not
dollar
cheap.
cost. And there's also a physical nuisance of packing up and moving.
Yeah, and I mean, me personally, I couldn't see or even want to have to think about moving, once every year, every 2 years. I mean, to me, I know what goes into it. It would not be a fun situation to have to deal with that almost on a yearly basis.
Even if your rent went down, but what if, in most cases, what's going to happen? Your rent is going up and you have to move.
Right. Yeah, that's not good. And, like I said, I really think, especially in the DC metro area, that, these rents are going to continue rising at a pretty rapid pace. Our overall supply is extremely low, both on the rental market and just in general for homes that are for sale. And it's actually creating a bubble all over again where people are bidding multiple contracts. I mean, most of these contracts now, if they're priced right, they're getting bid up, could be 5, 10, 15, 20,000 over list price.
And the presidential race looks like we're not going to have. What's holding up the D.C. market is government spending, government jobs. It doesn't look like any of the candidates are going to do much to change that. So whether it's Romney or Obama, you'll probably have a continued robust government sector in D.C., which will continue to drive the housing market there.
And this is probably good through at least 2014. Because, nothing really happens in the year of election and nothing really happens the year after the election. So,
well, unless you get someone like Ron Paul and he goes through on cutting his 5 agencies and cutting $1 trillion, you're not going to see any dramatic government spending coming out of D.C. So those contracts and those government jobs will remain in place, and that'll continue. That's why the D.C. area has one of the highest per capita incomes and a very robust job and housing market.
Yeah, and it's got like basically, three of the top counties for home prices in the entire country.
Well, that would all come crashing down if there was a decrease in government spending. But the only thing we're hearing from the major candidates, other than Ron Paul, is just a decrease in the percentage increase in spending. So we don't really see an issue in the D.C. metro area.
Just more of the same kicking the can down the road. I mean, that's that's probably good for at least another 4 years if Obama or Romney gets in there. We're coming up on a break. When we come back, we're going to jump into why real estate deals are falling apart and people are actually not able to get into their homes. Stay tuned when we come back.